What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome back to another MR100 plus updates for the build videos. This time around, we are taking a look at how our Longsword build and Dual Blade Elemental builds have evolved in Iceborne. Now, this build is a lot of fun. Previously, we were running Frostcraft, which was really cool. To be fair enough, it was a really cool ability, but we've evolved into something that's a little bit more self-sustaining. So while we were using the disposable breaker, I did get it all the way leveled up, and while it's still a beautiful longsword, ultimately I wanted to go to something that was more general use, because if I'm fighting anything that's weak, or that's not weak to thunder, it's just kind of wasted damage potential. And we've upgraded to the Soulfire Lash Ruin. Now this is the Nurgi Luna longsword. I like that it is considered a curved blade, which personally I think looks better for the quick sheath animation. Uh, can hit purple sharpness with some handicraft, have a decent amount of blast, 2 level 2 deco slots, and haste and recovery, which if you saw the video yesterday from Switch Axe and Hammer, you know that's actually pretty respectable now. We run handicraft charm to help get our handicraft on up to hit that purple. We're going to be running with 3 pieces of Kaiser, because to maintain that purple, we want Master's Touch. So I'm running Kaiser Crown Beta, Van Braces Beta, and then the Coil Beta. And the great thing here is while the Coil Beta is typically just picked up for its deco slots, we're actually benefiting from that blast attack because the Soulfire Lash has some blast already on it. Moving down from there, Garuga Greaves, pretty standard pick, along with the Rex Roar Mail. And this all comes together into something that has a little bit of everything. So we have our crit eye up at 7, we have our crit boost at 3, and our Wex at 3, giving us that holy trinity. We had some spare points for Agitator, which also, of course, got us the recovery up since they're Agi Medicine Jewels. Our attack boost is up at 4, last attack at level 2. We got that point of Fortify, good for the Guiding Lands, the haste and recovery, and of course, Master's Touch. Now, the main reason we have all this different stuff in the build is Master's Touch, of course, is going to prevent sharpness loss from critical hits. We have our 40% coming in from Crit Eye here. We have 5 right here with attack boost. We have another 7 when the monster is enraged. If the monster is not enraged, we're throwing it into a wall. So our base affinity is basically at 50%. You combine that with weak spots and 20 on wounded parts, and you're at 100% affinity with level 3 crit boost with Master's Touch so that you're not losing sharpness. So all in all, just a very, very solid all-around build. We're able to get the recovery up, which obviously has synergy with the haste and recovery, and you could go for a health augment on the weapon just to increase your sustain even more. But all in all, this pulls together. You can see we are up at 980 with purple and 240 blast, and this could even get better. Looking at our decoration slots again, one thing I want to point out here is our handicraft gem isn't all the, or our necklace isn't upgraded all the way. It's at level 3. So if you upgraded that, you could free up the handicraft slot that I'm using up here, and you could run a Challenger plus deco, giving you Agitator up at level 5. You could run a Blast Attack plus deco, putting your Blast Attack up to level 4. Personally, if I had my choice, I would go for the Agitator, just because putting that up to level 5 would make it 10%, just making it that much easier to ensure we are hitting that 100% crit mark. But there's still some room for growth here, obviously dependent on what decos you're getting. But all in all, just a very, very solid longsword set that does pretty competitive damage while still having a decent amount of self-survivability and sustain. Now for the elemental builds, they have kind of just all fallen into a pretty standard bucket. As you can see, not much changes between these two builds. This is going to be pretty much your standard for dual blades or sword and shield, any weapon that's quick that you're looking to do elemental damage with. And the main tenets for this, of course, are going to be trying to max your crit eye, max your elemental damage, and then pick up Wex level 3. Now to take a look at the build in particular, we are still running the Untouched Hell. Yes, I am well aware the Biototos dual blades do more ice damage, but they also look like somebody took a potato and slapped it onto a sword. As far as I'm concerned, these things look badass. They look awesome, and I'd rather look awesome while hunting than look like I'm swinging around 2 potatoes. So Untouched Hell, it still is. Frost Charm, get all your elemental charms up to level 3. As for our Silver Soul, in general, you're going to want to work with the Helm, Chest, Bracers, and Coil. Main reason for this is it leaves open the leg slot for Garuga Greaves, which, as I mentioned, are essentially the best freaking legs in the game. It's honestly stupid how good these are. But yeah, I mean, even then, the pieces aren't bad. We are getting free crit boost, which even though crit boost isn't needed with elemental crit, the untouched hell is still kind of a higher base, lower element style weapon. So we are still getting some benefit from that. Now, the one thing that I'm not a fan of with the true crit build is it's going to be a little bit harder to maintain our sharpness. So we did have to work on a sharp jewel. We have a single point handicraft to put us into purple and then sharp jewel, which I'm not a huge fan of that playstyle, but we do have a fair amount of white here. So even when we fall out and we don't have a chance to sharpen, we're not doing a like terrible amount of damage. But it is something to keep in mind. You know, if you're running something like Beatodos, you don't even have to worry about handicraft. Obviously, you have to live with the fact that you're hunting looking like a potato, but you know that's between you and God. So moving on from there, main things here, of course, get your crit eye and your ice attack up to max. As for our weapon in particular, you can see I have 3 element status effect upgrades on it, which actually put it up to 420 ice, which is pretty good because this weapon starts at I think like 240 or 270. So even using untouched hell, you can get a pretty hefty amount of ice. Aside from that, pretty standard things. You're going to want to slot in your tenderizer. Aside from that, I have a couple of kind of loose stuff here, an expert sated, an expert crisis, just to help get my crit eye up. But this could obviously get better with more expert plus jewels. You know, I could run an expert plus and then run extra handicraft for more purple. We do have kind of a stray challenger deco up here, and that's really just to give me more crit. You know, this build is at a base we have just our 40% from crit eye, so that just gives me another 5, so I'm at 95 because crits are always good when you're playing elemental crit. Anyway, moving on into the fire build, pretty much the same exact thing. Smoldering Kingdoms are a little bit trickier to work with, but I still do really like how these things work. The build itself hasn't really changed. We swapped in a Blaze Charm, we've used Smoldering Kingdoms, and you can see this one we don't have our fire attack all the way up. We have our crit eye there, we have our crit boost, our Wex, we have affinity sliding and protective polish, but you need 3 points of handicraft to get these bad boys up to purple sharpness, which makes them a little bit harder to work with. But even then, we could get a bit stronger with this build, mixing up a couple different things. Namely, we have the slider expert. I could slide in an expert plus there, and then instead I could take this expert and turn this into a fire attack to get my fire attack up to 6. But in general, elemental builds, especially for fast weapons, you're going to want the true crit. The thing is, true crit is just a silly damage, and you're not going to really see that damage on a testing dummy because elemental values on these things are shit. But if you want to test, for example, like take the Ice Dual Blades, go fight a high-ranked Diablos with your old Master's Touch elemental crit set, and then fight it again with true elemental crit, and you should be able to cut like 30 seconds to a minute off your time. It's honestly ridiculous how potent true elemental crit is. I want to say they did the math on it, and it was something like going from a 1.4 modifier with Ellie crit up to like a 1.7. It's something like that. It's a stupid increase. Now, one thing I also want to discuss is a lot of folks have been asking, you know, what about things like where's he at? Like this. You know, is elemental crit going to be better, or is true elemental crit going to be better on something that uses files? Personally, I haven't done the testing on this yet. I want to mess around kind of with elemental switch axes, and the question also pertains to that as well as charge blades, because you're not getting as many crits. Your files aren't critting. So I'm not entirely sure on that, but I'm sure the math guys will end up figuring out the math behind that stuff, and we'll all know then. But for something like dual blades or sword and shield or even bow, true Ellie crit is going to be your big dick damage beyond question. So either way, guys, that's going to be it for now. I do have a couple other builds that are kind of in the works. I have an impact charge blade that's not, you know, it's nothing too crazy. I could show it real fast just for those that want to see it. Impact is kind of a weird state right now because elemental is so potent. Just pretty much everything you'd want here. We got our focus, artillery, crit boost, etc., etc. You just, you know, Garuga, Damascus, some pieces here and there. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to upload one on Impact Charge Blade because it doesn't get used all that much anymore. But there are going to be a couple other builds that I'm looking to update in the coming days. Namely, I've been kind of going down the list and re-updating the most important ones. So up next, I'll probably take another look at the Dragon Charge Blade and see kind of how the math works with Elemental and stuff like that. So either way, thanks for coming on by and checking out the next video in the series of MR100 updates. As long as I update these builds, I'll keep putting out new videos for you guys. So thanks for watching as always, and I will see you all next time.